Hi, I'm Jesse Cannon, and this is my point 4 cents. Drunk.
I'm Dustin Boyer.
And I'm Matt Bacon.
And I'm Andrew Southworth, and this week we're talking about Distrokid being for sale. This week I spoke with Joshua Redbeard, the owner of Grayscale Records and Ninth Life Records, and the host of Short, Fast, Loud from Triple J and then now Double J, which is like the most influential radio programming in Australia. We also talk about what it takes to run a successful record label, how we get into being a radio host, and the role of storytelling in marketing.
Then after the break, we're going to talk about whether commenting on videos on TikTok and Reels gets you views. And behind the paywall this week, we talk about how body language affects your views and the new TikTok local feed. So guys, DistroKid is for sale. Some people are rejoicing at the idea that maybe they'll have a customer service department with whoever they're bought from. What are you guys thinking?
One thing that I think is shocking about DistroKid is they have this reputation about having horrible customer support, but I've purposefully hit them up under like a different email anonymously in the last several months, and their customer support has been like fire, like really good. Well, recently, like replies within a couple hours on the weekend kind of a thing with actual good answers to my questions. Whereas in the past, it would just be ghost town for weeks.
Interesting.
So I wonder if that's related. Like they
very well could be.
Over the past few months, they improved their customer support, but
I mean,
Shady
working with
baby.
artists, I could kind of assume that maybe artists just don't know. Like the expectations may be high. You know, people always kind of want a magic button for things. And I feel like as somebody who provides services to artists quite a bit, they tend to expect quite a bit from their services. That sounds kind of mean to artists, but it's, you know, I don't know. People always have complaints, but I've found that if you just kind of go with, you know, their customer service process, it generally gets resolved, just like you're saying, Andrew.
I'm going to push back on that, actually.
Okay.
I've seen enough of my consulting clients showing me the emails of what happens and what would happen a lot. And I think it's because they probably let it rot for a while, is they'd be like, okay, now go do this. And it would lead them to a dead end or a circle where that link would lead back to the link previously. And it's similar to what happens with Spotify is that like the problem with like Zendesk and things like this is it's so easy to have these, you know, just the rot of customer service of like, yes, well, that link's dead now because this other customer service agent killed it. Or like it goes to a thing that doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't work. And
I don't want to be the guy defending the giant corporation here, but you know, I will say the amount of money that that these services cost basically require that there can't be good customer support to what most artists would like. And so I think, like, for example, Venice Music charges, I think, $20 or $30 or $40 a month. And as a result, you get really freaking good customer service versus $40 a year, right? It's like you should expect that the less you're paying, the less you're getting. And often customer service, because everything's so automated, that's the easiest thing to just get rid of human labor, reduce cost, and have a service that's cheap enough. And, you know, I have a feeling whoever buys it it's going to make it worse. Just because look at CD Baby. They have the reputation of being the best customer support in the business for music distribution for indies. And now they are arguably the worst.
Really?
They're way worse than DistroKid and TuneCore and whatever. They used to have a phone line. They got rid of it. Then they went to chatbot, and now it's weeks-long support.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
my
kinda-
whole thing with this is like, when has a corporate acquisition made it better for the consumer?
well, particularly 'cause most of those aren't corporate acquisitions, they're venture capital acquisitions, which is a bit
Which is even worse.
Private equity is different than corporate. I mean, look,
But
a lot
it's
of the
even
times.
Usually.
Yeah.
and that's actually but usually what the acquisition is these days.
It depends though. Like, what is the goal here? Why are these corporate interests interested in gobbling up these independent distros? You know, did UMG want to buy CD Baby? It was UMG, right?
It was first Downtown, and then now UMG, subsidiary of UMG, is buying Downtown.
That's right. You know, I hung out with some muckety mucks from Downtown before the whole UMG. You like that term? I have a mentor who's really old and uses the old terms with me. But no, you know, they talk about Downtown has always talked about acquiring companies in a very venture capitalist way. Like these are people that aren't necessarily interested in the music business. Like the whole point of Downtown was to gobble up a whole bunch of companies, create a catalog of businesses that they can go and sell. It was very clear from the start that that was the only goal. But then you have to ask, you know, Universal's end game with all of these companies, is it for market share? Is it to just drive shareholder value? Do they really give a shit about these companies? I got some friends that work at Found.e, and I wonder about what their job is like because there's only like 4 people at that company.
Found.e and not Foundy? What's the matter with you?
Yeah, I thought that it was Foundy.
Foundy, I don't know, man. I guess
Well,
I
but
The
it's
real
true.
thing is no one knows what these
I always
things
call
are
it
said.
Foundy
No,
because it's fun.
But the larger point you're pointing at, Dustin, that I think is very important to realize is that, and this includes myself, every, like, maybe not every, but a lot of serious music companies, including my own, like, we're never gonna exit selling to, like, someone who wants to buy a marketing agency. We're only gonna exit because Warner buys us, and then you have to work for 5 more years. It's called an acqui-hire. And that's just kind of how it is. Is that great? I don't know. That's just how I see all the cool companies winding up.
I mean, I guess you're right. There was my previous agency, there was a group that came along that wanted to acquire us, and their whole goal was to use the marketing arm to leverage like and build a SaaS
Yeah.
for artists. And
Yeah.
honestly, we said no because their vision for what we were gonna have to do was like miserable. But if it's gonna be miserable, it better be a lot of fucking money, and it wasn't enough to be miserable. But no, I mean, I totally get it, right? These are, if you're gonna spend money, it's to make money at the end of the day. And but what I see, and I've always felt this way about distro, and I commend like Venice Music for trying to come in and shift the model. There's a lot of room for, I think, a company come in and disrupt this whole thing because the amount of service that is given to these artists is so stripped down and awful that distro services, I genuinely do not understand why there isn't better competition. And maybe
So-
because it's not scalable, but
I had a conversation about this with someone who runs a distribution company that I would describe as a boutique distribution company for kind of reasonably established labels. And by reasonably established, I mean like $500,000 a year in sales, which is not that big. And I was like, why don't we just expand this to like a $500 a year service for artists? You know, so like double or triple what a lot of these other companies charge, if not more. But like, couldn't we pay customer service that way? But I think even then, the amount of customer service requests you get are still not compensated with the pay scale.
I think
Which is a
unfortunately
bummer.
we're gonna have to put a trigger warning on this podcast for those who are in AA for Matt triggering them with his slurring.
What?
Fuck you, Jesse. No, but
That-
like this is
that was just at a very, very fancy event where somebody amazing was hosting and talking to many people.
I was hosting and talking to many people. Thank
That's why I say you're amazing. I compliment.
Oh, I love you, buddy.
you.
No, but
I'm trying to
seriously,
counteract Jesse's
no,
big
but
brother
seriously, like
bullshit.
I agree with you. Like, but it's kind of like the Spotify thing we talked about a few weeks ago, where it was like, well, Spotify, along with like YouTube, is most people's most used app. So like, if you're getting 20 hours of entertainment out of Spotify every month, which I would describe as on the low end, shouldn't this be more of like a $60 a month service? You know, and I feel like distribution is kind of the same thing, where it's like, well, if you want customer service, I feel like the price almost goes so high, which ties into the thing that we've talked about before, which is that part of the advantage of being on a label is that now you have like an actual rep for when shit goes wrong, which is terrible. I'm just saying that's how it is.
I'm gonna be real. I don't buy this analysis. for a second. The people at the top of these companies, and this is going to be take back the means of production, Jesse here stepping
Sure.
in, but like we have to be real here. You and I both know how well off Philip Kaplan, the head of Distrokid, already is.
Yes. Well,
You and I
know,
both
yeah.
know how much the dividends pay out, how much these people are able to do things. The idea that this is not enough for the customer service is like all else in the music business today, and this is a lot of what my movie is about, is that, and I'm just going to go here, the pigs at the top of the trough are eating all the food and saying, hey, little pig down below, I don't give a fuck what you worked for. I don't care that you are the value provider. I am not willing to give you my fucking crumbs. And I'm sorry,
Yeah.
like this whole thing you just said, it does not bear out when we see the publicly available profits of these companies, and that what we've seen since the 80s is a rise in the corporate payouts to the top of the food chain. And what people don't get is that is a fucking pie chart, and what they are stealing from is the people at the bottom. And straight up, I do not buy for 1 second that is the case. I think your analysis is fully off.
So if the company was, let's say, a more socialist company, less about profit margins, run by artists, the customer service might be a tad better, is what you're saying. There'd be more money for things like that.
So one of the things that's the problem when we discuss socialism is that a lot of people put in the gear of they just take it full communism. What it really is that we used to have a balance in this country where, for example, when we had 90% tax rates for people who made really excessive money off the backs of others, because we understood that we built the roads out of public good for them to get rich off of, that we had a more legit structure that allowed people our parents' age to be able to buy houses, modest jobs. And now we no longer have that. And that is the same psychology that has gone into this total slave mindset, to get all Kanye with it, that musicians now have towards that these people at the top, just because they made a shitty portal that you can now vibe code in 3 hours, should be allowed to have endless profits and they get fucking nothing.
That is the thing that actually drives me nuts about distro companies, because you can make an argument that, like, Spotify, for example, is in itself a product. There took creativity, there takes constant updates, and CD Baby, DistroKid, they're products, but they're more like pipes than anything else. And it is kind of insane.
You said that before.
Yeah, I don't understand why there isn't more competition. I get why DSPs, man, it's tough to compete there. But any of us, like you just said, Jesse, we could vibe code a competitor, and all we need to do is figure out how to make it a little bit more advantageous for the artist to distro through me than through DistroKid. It really isn't that big of a difference.
But I have a question. Andrew, you run a distribution company that I shot a video recommending today.
Oh boy.
Because I love you. And your distribution company is priced a notch above a lot of the other distribution companies.
I think we're at 50 a year for 5 artist slots.
Okay. For some reason I thought it was more expensive than that.
No, it's basically the same as DistroKid, but you get more artist slots, essentially the price. And Content ID is free; it's included, and so there's no annual fee for Content ID.
But point being, you run a distribution company. How much does customer service cost you, on average, per artist per year?
So most people don't need anything.
Sure.
That's like the nice thing, and I think
you're
that's
doing a
why
good job.
so many of these distribution platforms don't have customer service, because 99% of the time it's just pipes. And then you get the 1% of the time where things don't work, and it's very often the same people that the 1% of those problems happen in. And the reality is it's just not often it's just not financially viable to support those problems. And that's the reality. Like we've had cases where someone's like, we really need this resolved or this problem, and then it's like honestly, like if this is what you need, like just go to a different distributor. Like we don't have the means to do this crazy thing that they want done.
But okay, so what I want to clarify as someone who loves you, what makes
It's
no,
the
but
most
like,
sober statement of
What
all
is
time.
fucking happening?
no,
I don't. I need
like,
to have a drink to get on this level.
Are we going to breathalyze before we fucking tape from now on? Like, Jesus Christ. Well,
Can I just finish a real
shut
question?
up.
Can I?
I'll let
Can I?
you
Okay,
man on
fuck
the
you,
podcast.
Jesse. Fuck you, Jesse. Let me
Liz,
finish
is
my
right.
question. Let me finish my question. If 99% of your clients are like no issue, they upload, they get distributed, much love. Why is it that 1% costs you so much, relatively speaking? Because that's what I want people to understand.
Yeah, I mean it's different in every case, but it's like I don't know, like our distributor, we don't allow AI generated music, and so like for
Sure.
example, it's usually the same people trying to squeak it through, and then we ask for like proof that it was human made, and then they send proof, and sometimes the proof is obviously fake, and then it requires back and forth, or like they're trying to get a certain artist name through, and like DSPs don't allow generic artist names, like you can't name your band ambient sleep music anymore. That was a hack that you used to be able to do, and you can't. And then, then they're back and forth to figure that out, or like it gets flagged in the system as someone else, like this is being flagged that like this is another artist's music, and people are trying to squeeze that stuff by scale. There's all these different scenarios that can happen. And it's not always like, oh, our release didn't make it onto the right profile on Apple. Like those are easy things to fix.
Sure.
And those are the ones we fix. But when we have
So
people that
so the
we're trying to do this crazy thing or trying to squeak stuff by, then it's like it's just literally not worth the money to deal with those problems.
so the issue is not genuine artist problems. The issue is people being shitty.
Most of the time.
I mean,
Or
that is the issue of customer service. Is you got people
Sure.
like that
I just wanted to clarify.
gumming it up.
it
Yeah,
could also be like people just consistently wrong and making mistakes. That's another thing. Like people that just don't know what they're doing. And I'm sure it's the same thing with Distrokid. Like I uploaded my, I don't know, they made a typo in their artist name and it's on a different thing. And they're like, I want to fix that. And it's like, okay, go in the portal and pull down this release and do it. And like, oh, can you just do it for me? And it's like, no, we can't. Go in and do it yourself. Um, so most of the time, the worst things are people trying to milk the system, but there are people who don't know how to use these platforms that I think cause a lot of problems. And that's where like the help desks come in, is like you try to drive people to help desk, but some people refuse to sort through it. And that's where AI chatbots come in, and some people refuse to talk to the AI chatbots, and they
That's
only
me.
want a person, but having a
that's
person,
me.
yeah. It's
Don't
me
make me
too.
talk
When
to this
I call a
computer.
number and I get an AI thing, I'm just like smashing zero, talk to human,
Yeah.
talk to human.
No.
But people do
okay,
the same
so
thing with an online SaaS platform.
Yeah, what's the point you're trying to make, Mac? I'm wondering where this is going.
It's
no,
just trying to
so,
help
like,
me help me promote my music distribution.
Yeah, is that what's
it's that, but it's also this question of like 99% of the time it's totally fine. Why can't we do it for the 1% of the time?
Because
And
Andrews is not at big enough scale where he gets all the plankton at the bottom of the sea, which is the
Yeah.
big issue. Is that
Yeah.
DistroKid built a business off of running Reddit ads, Google ads, Meta ads, and everything else to the lowest common denominator, as did Lander. And Lander famously decided we're going to opt out of customer service because they are the scum of the earth and one of the worst companies to ever be in the music business. And the real thing is that at scale, when you scale up to getting lots of people who are not as savvy, people are go to Andrew because they're savvy enough to have watched this content, you're going to get way worse clients who are totally ignorant.
I don't know. I mean, like obviously the founder of DistroKid is like mega rich, right? So clearly there's money to be made. But I guess no one knows because they're a private company. How does that math break down into like if you have, I don't know, 5 million artists who are distributing a song X period of time on average? And then all the money that comes in, you could do a math equation of this is how much money is allocated per customer per song for customer support theoretically. And is that
Yeah.
number like 50 cents or is that number $17? Right? Because if it's 50 cents, like, okay, that means we can't do customer support for like 99% of things because there isn't enough money. Like, what am I going to pay? I could go to a cheap country and get the cheapest possible labor ever and figure out a way with AI to make that work with a bunch of scripts. But if it's like $20 a person, and instead of paying that, like there's plenty of money to do customer support in that case, and then they're just hoarding that, that's a different story. Yeah.
But
Since
we
they're
do
a
know
private company, no one knows how that maps.
but Andrew, that's not true. We do know that they fired the employees when they tried to unionize, and that they outsourced the customer service overseas. We know that. They did a whole AMA about it. The employees who were fired. That was a very publicized thing. So we actually do know that.
It's a very funny AMA if you haven't read it. It is.
I haven't seen it. No.
I have to watch.
Extremely funny and sad.
And
But, you know,
it tells a tale of exactly the worst case scenario that I was saying before, which is just hoarding money towards the top of the food chain.
And
How
if
many
you
people
think
were
about, though,
actually let go from their
30,
support team?
30, Matt? It was like 25 to 30 or something.
That sounds accurate. I haven't
I'd
looked
have
at
to
it
look.
since it happened a while
That's
ago.
that's what my memory tells me.
But so for that whole company who was at one time distributing 70% of all music on the
I
internet,
think they still are.
they had 30 customers.
Well, of people who unionized, so we don't know how many were left over to supervise those. But
Yeah.
this is the thing that we're having of this time is that tons of companies, the second they hear unionize, they hear my profits are going down the drain, and I'm going to fuck these employees because I'd rather do that than not pay people fairly who are dealing with the worst things.
But here's another angle on that. Like what did they rehire those roles? Like, did they let's say fire them because they're ununionized and then just go rehire 30 new people, or did they permanently close those?
No, apparently they sourced them overseas and used AI.
Okay, and that's why it was.
That's at least the account that was published online from fired people of a company. Who knows what the full story is, but that is the story as of now.
Well, I will say right now it's been great, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was all very much tied to the sale of.
And just to reiterate, not to complete the washing machine's kicking up, whatever. But can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't even hear
Yeah,
this.
just mute when you're done.
Okay, just not to completely shit on Distrokid, although Distrokid obviously does have its problems.
Are you sponsored by Distrokid? What is happening here?
But I have seen this issue happen consistently with every big distributor. This is not a question of, oh, Distrokid's the devil, go use so-and-so. Jesse even made a video about it.
Yeah, they all suck.
What I said today, what I said tonight, I gave a talk before this, and I basically said every week I have a conversation. I have one conversation with an artist where it's like, oh, Distrokid saved my life. Oh my God, this is the best thing. And then the next conversation is like, Distrokid is the devil. What the fuck? What do I do next? Except I have that about every big distributor every week.
Yeah. I've had the most problems with Lander in the last 6 months for them ruining people's music or pulling them for bad reasons or whatever. But I've seen it with all of them. Honestly, all the big ones. TuneCore sucks. I've never had a problem with Amuse. I've heard problems with Ditto, CD Baby, DistroKid. I've never heard anything with Symphonic.
Well, the thing that drives me...
But hold on. Symphonic and United Masters and Venice have done a counter to reaction to the other people's bad customer service.
Yeah.
And the way they are trying to capture market share is through good customer service.
Yep.
I had a problem with United Masters, but I wonder if mine was isolated. I signed up just to check out their platform, and then I canceled it, and then they just charged me anyways. And then I contacted their support the next day, and they said, "No, too bad. You have a year of United Masters." And I was like, "Charge back."
Well, the thing that drives me fucking crazy is it's just the lack of accountability. Well, because I had an idea, Jesse, and then I went up and got some water, and then I got lost. No, but the lack of accountability is insane to me, because it feels like so often we put your music on Spotify, fuck you. And the other thing that drives me crazy is that I have an artist I work with who does hip hop, and it's just this crazy thing of okay, so you're making hip hop. There's only so many 4/4 beats in the world possible. And yet sometimes you get flagged for AI despite the fact that you made the beat in a studio with a producer. We're I'm not talking about the least beats scam where basically you can lease a beat and like make a cool piece of art, but someone else leased the beat and like is like copyright frauding everyone else on it, which sucks. And we talked about that before, and that's extremely gross. But like, if you just use the sample pack that a lot of people are using, sometimes you'll still get like flagged, and it's like, no, I just use the sample pack that literally thousands of artists use, and also the distributor has zero accountability.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just the
And
pipes,
that could
man.
be on
They don't
by
repair the
way.
pipes. They're just the pipes. I mean, look,
Yeah.
like circling back, because we probably should need to wrap up this.
Yeah,
segment.
we do need to wrap it up.
So everybody's pro capitalism, right? Pro biggest companies own everything, own the independents, right? That's where we're all at on this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My personal thing is, as lovely as it is to have all your music on one distributor, personally, I have 5 or 6 distributors because I'm a paranoid man and I don't trust anyone. My default is don't trust any company. I don't keep all my money in one bank. I don't keep all my retirement in one thing. I don't like I distribute it because I'm always paranoid. Like even with the fucking bank thing, it's like there's legal government protections around like if something happens with the bank. I still don't trust it. I don't trust getting hacked. I don't trust all this thing. So same with distributors. I don't trust any distributor really.
Yeah.
So my strategy is, okay, what if I trust 5, each with different chunks of what I do, and then back up your files, back up your ISRC codes, back up your artwork, so that if something happens, like DistroKid gets bought by the most evil company on earth and they fuck things up for you, maybe it only messes up a quarter of your catalog, and then you could just redistribute that on one of the other platforms, you know?
That's
And then
good
that's
advice.
what I do. I don't trust anyone. So you've done a lot of like epic things in music, which I know you're probably going to be humble about it, but you have. And like, for example, you are the owner and co-founder of Grayscale Records. You're the co-owner and co-founder of Ninth Life Records. You're the owner and founder of High Water Agency, which is a management group for a bunch of awesome artists. You're also the host of Short Fast Loud, which was on Triple J, which is now on Double J, which I didn't even know what this Triple J, Double J thing was until before, which is like this huge radio station in Australia that's done all these awesome things as well with millions of followers online and stuff, millions of listeners. So, anyways, I bring that to say, if you could kind of walk us through kind of like who you are, what you do, and how the heck did you do all these crazy things in music? Like, what led to you getting these cool gigs?
It is a really long story, I guess, but like it's interesting because it comes back to what I was saying at the start of the show, because it all comes back to one thing. It comes back to my very first day of high school. I went to like a private Catholic boys' school in Australia, and we had to wear the blazer, like the tie, the leather shoes. And I remember like getting dressed that first day and going to school and taking like a couple of steps into school and be like, I would have been 12 years old. I was just about to turn 13, and I went, I will not spend my life in a suit. Whatever I'm doing, I'm not going to be wearing this suit to work. And that was kind of my first thing. It's like, all right, well, that's me. I'm not a, like, you know, as like people joke that I wear cutoffs every day. This is how my work wear is, what I like to do. And so everything I kind of did from that point on was like, how can I not end up in an office in a suit doing something I hate? And then it was sort of like, you know, it's a lot of people don't know this part of the story, but I actually started DJing dance music when I was 15 years old. I was DJing at clubs in Melbourne because
They even let you in the clubs at 15.
we had like underage clubs as well. I did do a couple of overage ones, but like, yeah, we had like underage clubs that you go into. There's no drinking and stuff like that. But yeah, so I started with a friend doing that very, very young, and we DJ house parties. We got our first radio show on a radio station called Street FM that doesn't exist anymore, doing dance music on like, it was like 10 a.m. till 12 on Sunday morning. And that, like, I'd be terrified to hear those radio shows because they would be the worst things ever. Like, I'd be like, hey, you're on the radio. That would have been god awful. But it was heaps and heaps of fun. And I realized like, I really like sharing my love of music. And at the same time, like, so as you said, like I work for Triple J now. Triple J is under the ABC, and another thing the ABC had was this television show called Rage. And Rage would start at, I think it was midnight on a Friday night, and go till 6 a.m. and just play music videos. And on the weekends, they'd also have like guest hosts come in. So I was like 15 years old and I couldn't sleep because I didn't really sleep much. And I watched Unwritten Law do a guest takeover of Rage. And so then I saw, like, I've discovered Refused, I discovered Deftones, I discovered like Marilyn Manson, like so much in this first night where I was just kind of like, oh, this is my music. This is what I want to do. And my father's always been really, really into business. He really likes sports and business. And my brother is the sporty one, and I'm not a sporty person. So me and my dad would talk a lot of business stuff. And so like I would kind of learn bits and pieces from him. And then I started planning record labels when I was like, again, probably 15, 16 years old, because I'd met some dance producers in Melbourne and I was like, this is really, really sick. So I did whole business plans, but never really did anything with them. And then I got another radio show on a station called Sin FM in Melbourne, and I was running the punk and hardcore night with a friend of mine, and we had like the longest running show on that station for a long time called Works in Theory. And again, it was just us being ourselves. Like we would play punk music and talk about punk music, but we'd also do like little comedy skits and all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
by this time I'd kind of finished school and didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. But again, it was just like, as long as it wasn't a suit and a tie, that was kind of me. That's what I wanted to do. So ended up leaving radio for a little bit. Life happens, you kind of shift away. But Triple J was looking for a host to take over their heavy metal show called The Racket, and applied for that. Didn't end up getting it. A good friend of mine called Lachlan Watt, he got it because his knowledge was more in the metal world. Mine's always been more in like the punk and hardcore kind of world. But there was another show called Short Fast Loud on Triple J that I'd listened to for a long time, hosted by a guy called Stu Harvey. And so they kept me around doing like the middle of the night shifts on radio. I was doing, the 1 a.m. till 6 a.m. shift in the middle of the night because that's where you started at Triple J.
Yeah.
And then eventually Stu said he was leaving, and the boss was like, do you want this? And I was like, absolutely, 100%.
When you first started working there, like what did they have you doing?
So I was like literally like hosting. So they'd print out they'd have the playlist set up. I'd come in at, midnight, set up the show for the night. And then it was just like, you'd play 4 songs, back announce, forward announce. It was the best way to kind of cut your teeth in radio craft, because you'd kind of, you'd practice throwing forward to what's coming up ahead, saying something about something you just heard.
Yeah.
And a lot of that, because it wasn't like my music, it's a lot of practice around like, that was that awesome song from Kings of Leon. I love that song. Lies. But, that's what you got to practice. Every song has to be awesome. You're not allowed to shit on stuff you don't like. So,
So what kind of experience or like, what do you need for a company like that to trust you with a job like that? Because obviously you're doing it in the middle of the night, so the pressure's way less. But at the end of the day, you are broadcasting to a ton of
a lot
people.
of people. A lot of
And
people.
if you just go off the rails and do something very bad, like you could cost them a ton of money. So I have to imagine there's some type of like application process, vetting process, something, right? Or
I mean, there's a little bit. Usually, like the hosts of Triple J are pulled from. So every city in Australia kind of has their own main kind of like community station. So Melbourne has 3 of them. It has Sin FM, Triple R, and PBS. And then Sydney has FBI, Brisbane has 4ZZZ. So they're like the main popular community stations each time. They all have their own like diehard kind of fan base. But that's also where people kind of cut their teeth with Radiocraft, and then you kind of move from there to Triple J. And then I mean there comes a point where Triple J just kind of trusts you, just be like, well, they'll listen to you, and if you stuff up, they'll never let you on again. But
Gotcha.
I mean, you've got to stuff up pretty bad. I don't think I've done anything too bad on Triple J. I've stuffed up pretty badly on Sin FM, but yeah, no, I've been pretty good so far on Triple J.
Yeah, I wouldn't have expected that. And maybe it's different nowadays, but like in my head, I would almost imagine like before you get trusted with something like that, you have some type of experience. Like nowadays, it'd almost be like you're a social media influencer, so they know you're kind of comfortable coming up with stuff and being creative and talking. Whereas like, okay, we kind of can see you're a person who can talk about music, therefore we trust you to actually be on air, be broadcast to the world.
Pretty much. Yeah, like, you'll do a couple of like test runs before you ever like put live and stuff like that. Like you record a couple of just like practice shows, so to speak. But yeah, I think that's why like the good thing is like, in the middle of the night, it was usually people in the mines, bakers, a lot of bakers listening at that time of the morning. They'll get up at 3 to start baking, so they'll put on Triple J, and then just, all sorts of colorful characters who don't sleep. So it's always interesting who is listening and calling and texting in at 3 in the morning.
I bet. Yeah. So let's see. But where did I cut you off? Something
So
something around you started working this kind of graveyard shift, and that
yeah, I just gotten like yes, I'd done the graveyard shift, and then Stu Harvey had left Short Fast Loud, and I'd taken over Short Fast Loud, and so like my name within the Australian music scene started to kind of get a bit of credit. People were starting to know who I was, and so I was meeting a whole bunch of really cool people, both nationally and internationally as well. I was starting to get introduced to like heads of really big record labels and like people that I'd looked up to as a kid, and so it was like I'd started to within the first kind of year I'd realized I'd developed this network of people who you know for some reason respected what I had to say and what I thought was good music. And so my brain was like, as I said, before, is that business brain of just like, well, what more can I do with all of this? With this, I have this in front of me. And at the same kind of time, I'd seen the contract a friend of mine's band had signed to another label, and it was disgusting, in my opinion. Like there are people can have their own opinions on how they want to run record labels and what they want to do. But I looked at this and just thought, there's no way that this is fair, and there's no way that someone can make money. And it's like all these band members who were in quite popular bands still had to have like full-time jobs. Like it just didn't make any sense to me. And so like, it was one of those moments where you go like, oh, someone has to do something about this. And then you go, oh, I'm someone. And so like I'd been kind of thinking about what it was like, do bands still even need record labels? Like, do they just need a good manager? Do they just need a good publicist? Like, what is it that they kind of need? And started having a couple of conversations, and I hit up a friend of mine, a booker called Ash, and because he was working with a band at the time called Ocean Grove, and they just released their first EP, and like they were starting to get some hype about them, but didn't have a record label. And I asked him, just like, do you want to meet up for a coffee? We'll just have a chat. And like we catch up and sit down. And the first thing he says is, "You're starting a record label, aren't you?" And I went, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what it is at this stage." And then, we were talking about what Ocean Grove were doing, what they needed, all that kind of stuff. Conversation didn't really go anywhere, but helped me with a couple of thoughts. And then a couple of weeks go past, and my phone rings out of the blue, and it's Ash. And I pick up the phone, and again, he doesn't even say hi. It's just like, "I think we should start a record label." And I went, "All right, let's meet up. Let's go and get a drink." I was living right next to this place called the Corner Hotel, which is a really sick venue in Melbourne. They've got a really nice beer garden upstairs. I was like, let's meet in the beer garden. I got off the phone. I just started, like same thing as when I was 15 years old, just making notes. Like, and I wrote out basically a whole business plan in an hour. Like, we could do all of this. And then we ended up meeting up, and like we sat down and I opened up this book, and he just looked at everything that I've written, and he's like, "Are we starting a record label?" I was like, "I reckon we're starting a record label." And so that was kind of how it all started. And like the first goals of Grayscale were DIY attitude, major aspirations. Like that was very much like our core idea, was that we were coming into this as a DIY label, but with the intention that eventually we want to take over and do what the big labels are doing, but on our own terms.
Yeah.
And so like Ash had a really good reputation within like the booking scene, so he knew a whole bunch of bands there. And he's a lot more social than me. I'm not a very social person. I don't party, I don't drink, I don't party. I like, I'm very much a homebody, but I love music and I love business and I love sharing it. So I like our skills were very, very complementary in terms of what we were doing. And so yeah, like we started reaching out to bands and just kind of saying, this is what we're planning on doing. And then yeah, Grayscale just kind of grew out of that and has become a beast beyond what we ever thought possible. Like Ash has got such a big career within the booking scene, so he ended up having to leave Grayscale because he was just too busy for how big we were growing. So it's like there's no bad blood or beef. It's just like he got too busy. We kind of needed to move forward, and so yeah, it's my baby now.
What is a business plan, or what did your business plan look like for Grayscale when you were initially creating it? Because a lot of artists think of labels and like, oh, there's these entities that live to exploit artists, blah blah blah, and but like the reality is, to start a label, you need some type of capital, right? Because like a label is going to provide different services for artists, with which could mean marketing, which could mean like help with production, it could mean help with art, like it can mean a lot of things for what you have to help them with. Sometimes that can be your time, but a lot of times it also involves money. And then there's the matter of like how might you were talking about how like you hated the deals your friends were getting, so you wanted to make Grayscale have deals that were a lot more favorable for artists. So I don't know, any obviously you know don't want to give away like your entire contract or whatever. But like what can you share about like what is the business plan, or what were you thinking of in terms of like the business side of like how can we make something that actually makes money so that we don't just shut down in a year?
Mm. Well, it's it was it was a bit of a fortunate situation as well, I guess, because if we didn't have other jobs, it probably wouldn't have gone as well as it did. Obviously, like I had radio, and I was also working for another record label that was at the time called Cooking Vinyl. It's now called Civilians. So I was doing a lot of I was like production management for them. And then Ash obviously had his stuff with Destroyer Lions. And so we were lucky that we didn't need it to make us like we didn't need it. We didn't get paid anything from Grayscale for I think 4 years. Like Grayscale was making money, it wasn't losing money, but we didn't take anything out of it for 4 years because we had
Yeah.
everything else set up. And we're really, really lucky that we had that to do it, because it means that we could do it right rather than having to screw over our bands just to make a living. But we kind of
Essentially
came
every
back
dollar you're making is just getting reinvested back into the
exactly.
label.
Yeah, exactly. And so we'd pump that back into our bands, back into PR, back into marketing, back into manufacturing, all the kind of stuff that comes with it. But yeah, when we kind of looked at it, we went, all right, well, we want artist friendly deals. So your standard artist friendly deal is 50-50. We're in this together. We want to work together. We'll invest the money so you don't have to. We'll do this work. You create the music. We're doing this together. We're doing the same amount of work. We deserve the same amount of payment out of it. The contracts that I've seen, like a good deal is 30% to the band and 70% to the label. I've seen ones that are as bad as I've seen a 17% to the band and 83 to the label, which is insanity. And also like I guess a big thing for me is just like, and again, I don't want to say this as a judgment for labels that do it. I know there are labels that do it, and I get that there isn't that do it, but like I didn't write the music, so I don't own your music. I will license your music, but
So
it's
you do
still
like a licensed
yeah,
term of like
yeah.
what,
All our deals are like
7-year licensing deal or
we
something?
usually do 10 years, but we're flexible as well. But it's very much like you created it, it's yours. That's always been my thing. I'm not gonna make you sign that over to me for the rest of your life, because it's not mine. Like at the end of the day, it's as
Yeah.
simple as that.
I've seen a
And so
lot of arguments for that either way. Obviously, it's better for the artist to own their masters long term, I would say. The argument I've heard from several label owners for owning the masters is if we can't bank on the long term, like if we don't have any assets that we own, how can we ever secure our future? Which I think is a valid argument. But also the artist could say the same thing.
yeah,
In
pretty
a way.
much.
And I guess the counter argument to that is like the label can say that they're the ones who put that out. So even if they don't own the asset anymore, they still have the track record of, hey, we did that.
Yeah.
Like, if whenever all of let's say you have an awesome artist that ends up getting, to whatever the biggest label is in the world in the future or whatever, and like you don't own the rights to that music anymore, like everyone's still gonna know that you're the reason that they got upscaled, upstreamed. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
upstreamed.
upstream. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And,
yeah.
and like, yeah, I don't, yeah, like I said, that's one of the things I don't say disparagement, because like you said, like I can definitely see from a business point of view where that makes sense. Um, I don't know, if it, like cheesy, whatever to say, like, I think coming from a very, very punk rock background, like that's just like, it's not very punk, I guess, like, and so I'm just like, I don't, I don't, I don't need to own these things. Like, I think if it all fell down tomorrow, like if everything went away tomorrow, like, yeah, I'd be bummed, but I'd be really proud of what I've done. Again, coming back to the very first thing we said at the very, very start of this is like being yourself and being true to yourself. Like that's true to me. And yeah, like I could make better decisions for the business of Grayscale Records, but it comes at the expense of something else, and that's not
Yeah.
me. And so, yeah, whenever we were coming up with the original plan for Grayscale, the original contracts for Grayscale, like we've, and it was a learning curve as well. Like I remember, we had something in the deal where it was like, if we licensed a band for the world and then like another label wanted to come on, we'd license it to the other label. But then the way it kind of worked is that the other label would take, if they were taking, the quote unquote normal rate, they're taking 70% and then they're paying Grayscale 30%. And then Grayscale's taking 50% of that 30% in our original contracts. And I looked at that and went, well, no, like we're not doing anything for that money. Like, yeah, we've done the early work for it, but it's like, whatever, let that go. But it's like, I'm not going to, like, if a band's only getting 30%, I'm not going to take half of that again. That's, again, that doesn't sit with me. And so we changed our contracts to make that better for the bands, because I was like, well, I don't agree with that. And so again, we have to change these things, because again, it's like, if everything we're doing is from the scope of like, I want our bands to be able to just focus on music, and I want bands to have a career out of it. And it's like, if I'm keeping all their hard-earned money, then it's harder for them. So, and then that just like, if they can't make music, then Grayscale can't release music and Grayscale doesn't make money. So it's like
Right.
it's another way of looking at it, but it's like, that is where it sits within me, where I went, I am comfortable with this. And if I'm not comfortable with it, then I have to change it.
Makes sense. So if an artist comes to you and let's say they're an artist that you really want to work with because you love their music, you see they have some momentum under their name as well, and then the band says, "Well, what are you guys going to do for me that I'm going to give up 50% of the revenue from this music for 10 years?" What's your kind of go-to pitch of like how do you guys explain the value that you provide to these artists?
I mean, it's a number of things. Like I quite like to sell the team that we've kind of built at Grayscale. So we have originally she was a publicist, but now we've kind of flipped this role into what we're calling a community manager. Ophelia has been part of the Grayscale team for so long, and we realized that like classic publicity wasn't really working as well as it used to anymore. Like people aren't reading websites and magazines as much, but people are getting really into podcasters like yourself and influencers and reactors. And so Ophelia's job has now flipped into like, she's created relationships with, influencers from all around the world, reactors from all around the world, podcasts.
Those YouTube reaction channels are like
have done so much. Have done so much for Grayscale, and I'm so thankful for the support of so many of them. And so, yeah, like that, we have that side of things. And then Callum does all our social media design assets to make sure everything looks really, really pro. He handles all our social media. He handles all our like internal ads, like the little ads we do here and there when we're not outsourcing to, larger marketing companies. We won't name names, but larger marketing companies. And then Sabian from Alpha Wolf also now works within the Grayscale team doing like an A&R role. So he's sitting with all our bands. As soon as they said we've got this release like ready to go, he's coming in being like, all right, we're going to make sure that your music videos are up to scratch, your photos are up to scratch, like all your assets look at a level that's Alpha Wolf or above. Like that's very much like, if it's not his level, he's going to push harder. And so we have like a really, really cool team. And then like obviously like, the connections that we've all built together, that kind of name that like, we've developed relationships with most of record labels around the world. We've licensed stuff out to Pure Noise, to Sharptone, to Nuclear Blast, to 1126. We've got connections with bookers, and so we can kind of help pseudo management roles in terms of helping kind of connect those dots. And then also just like, I feel like from us it's a lot of our knowledge. Like we're working with some bands, we signed Heaven's Gate before they released a single song, Pincer before they released a single song. This band Melting we signed recently had literally one song out. So it's like there's a lot of young bands who just need help and direction, and kind of steering them in the same way, like and steering them, again, it's the same thing we kind of started, like kind of steering them clear of the predators who are looking to take advantage of bands as well. Like I've had chats with bands. I had a chat with a band the other day, like a band that I believe is going to be a really, really big band, and I kind of listened to everything they had to say, and I gave them the honest truth. It's just like, I would love to work with this particular act because it would be great for Grayscale, but they have really, really good offers on the table that are better. And so I'm going to say to this person, like, this is a great, like, you know, they were telling me a couple of different options, and one of the options they had was a record label. It's a really good friend of mine's, and I went, they are going to do amazing things for you, like incredible things for you, more than Grayscale can. And like, no, like knowing our place and being honest about who we are and what we can do. I think like people tend to really, really respect that too. It's just like if I can't, no, I've let a couple of bands out of contracts because I've realized that like there's nothing we can do for them that they can't do for themselves. And if I don't believe I can add value to what they're doing, I don't want to be taking from them. And so yeah, I feel like it's
Behind our membership, we dive even deeper and get more tactical on how he runs his label and deals with label agreements.
So I gave a talk earlier tonight, and one of the things I talk about when I do my sort of live shows is how the content you comment on helps dictate your algorithm on Instagram and TikTok, although we're going to argue about that. But also by reaching out to your community in general, you're more likely to get views back on your content. I have some strategies for this, but I wanted to hear the group's thoughts, because my strategy for this is basically, if you want to grow your Instagram, go drop 100 comments a day on relevant artists on Instagram. If you want to go your TikTok, go drop 100 comments a day on relevant artists on your TikTok. What do you guys think?
I think
Well,
just like meeting people in general and talking to them has kind of always been a thing you can do to get more people aware about what you do. And if they're the right people, then the algorithm will pick up on, oh, these 50 people who are in this exact profile are watching your stuff. And so I don't think, at least my assumption, and maybe someone knows more about how these platforms' algorithms work, is it's less about commenting is inherently some secret algorithmic metric, which I'm sure it is to a degree. I have a feeling watch time is the most impactful thing on every platform, but I have a feeling that the comments is more about, if you have X amount of people that are seeing your comments and then click on you and check you out, now those views and that watch time hour from that targeted demographic is influencing the algorithm as a secondary effect from the comments, not the comments themselves being inherently magical.
yeah, it's about an ongoing conversation that you're having with people. We had this conversation about Threads the other day, where I feel like half of the growth that you have on Threads is just simply having conversation with people on there. And what I have found through the last half a decade that I've been working on social media is that if I have an account and I have that social person working that account actively engaging in other content that would be also content their fans would enjoy, then it tends to wrap back into their algorithm. But it's not in like an inherent algorithmic thing. Like the algorithm seeing who you're commenting on and therefore learning from it. It's that those people are engaging, going and watching your content. Like, who is this person? Especially if you're verified. I mean, look, I hate that I do this, but I pay for my verification on Instagram because $15 a month means that people are likely seeing my verification and there's something in their brain that just goes, oh, you know, what is this? And then, you know, it attracts people. And that is important for the algorithm to learn. But Jesse, you mentioned that the CEO of Instagram kind of said otherwise, right?
So there was an article, I want to say it was a YouTube and an article from one of these guys who does Instagram growth, and Mosseri apparently in one of those QAs said, like, they don't care who you follow. You can follow Uncle Jimmy, who just does their autographed hockey jerseys if you're a musician, and they're not going to care because Instagram wants to be the place where you DM people, contact, and interact on that site. And apparently that is different than TikTok, who takes hints. It does not mean that you comment on Addison Rae, you're going to go to Addison Rae's followers. It means it takes hints of where to send you to when it's trying to figure it out. Now, I will say this. There is no doubt about that. I have done a thing with many, many an artist where we just go in and we do that thing Matt talked about, the 2010 strategy of Instagram that I was using to build groups like Man Overboard, where we just comment on every group in the genre all the fucking time until we start to get enough followers that they hear the music. 16-year-olds, technique has worked great the whole time. With that said, I can't say that I see that get people out of algorithmic jail on Instagram the way it does TikTok. When I see just who I do calls with report back to me, I don't have the hard anecdotal. I have anecdotal evidence. I don't have hard evidence on that because I can't watch over their shoulder what they did.
So you're saying that it doesn't work on Instagram, but it does work on TikTok.
I'm saying Adam Mosseri has said it out. One of the things I should have said is Adam Mosseri loves to say things that we can prove are not the case all the time, such as much of the fuckery going on with trial
That's
votes
a
right now.
roundabout way
So
to say he
here's-
lied.
I wasn't even trying to be roundabout. I'm like, one of the things with Spotify and Instagram, like what they tell the public does not always amount to what experiments show back.
So here's what I would say. So we agree about this on TikTok. Fine. On Instagram, what I have experienced, which is contradictory to Jesse's experience, and Jesse and I sometimes find interesting gaps between my clientele and his, even though we think it's the same. It's actually not. But something I genuinely believe is, if I am a small indie rock artist with 1,000 followers, and I go comment on other indie rock artists with 1,000 followers, those guys are not getting a lot of comments in general. If I do that at scale, so 100 times a day, a certain chunk of those guys are going to go, or gals, or whatever, are going to go, who's this person commenting? And go check me out. And if my content is good, they're going to give me a follow. I don't know if the algorithm completely dictates that as much as just the human interaction dictates that. But what I know is that the problem with social media is that it's so one-to-many, and we're all sort of talking heads talking to the masses. And when you can make that feel one-on-one, good things happen.
By the way, that's always been my take, that it's not
Yeah.
an algorithmic thing. It's not like TikTok's like, ooh, let's learn. You know, when we launch fan accounts, I will, especially if it's a popular band, like we did this with Skillet a couple of years ago, where I launched it without posting anything for a week. I would get on and I would just search Skillet content and I'd engage. And I think a few people clicked on, actually, now that I've talked about this loud, I didn't have any content. I assume people clicked on my profile. They certainly responded to my comments. But the very first post I did on that account was a carousel that was like what you think a Christian band looks like. And it was like the pinnacle of Christian bandhood, which is like the band in the church, are really boring. The button.
Sounded like Coldplay.
Yeah, right. And then the carousel was like what a Christian band really looks like, and it was Skillet. And we did 1.5 million views on the very first post. And in my mind, I had trained that algorithm. I think if I just went in cold, it would have serviced that
Yeah.
content, but there's a good chance it would have reached the first 300 people that just weren't that. Now that was TikTok, but that has always been a
Dustin,
strategy and success rate.
how many comments did you drop before you did that?
I was on it every day, probably doing like 10 to 15 comments a day, viewing, engaging on hundreds of pieces of content though. But I only comment 10 or 15 a day.
But like, how many days did you do 10 or 15 a day?
About a week.
Okay. So it wasn't like insane.
No.
It was like generously 100 comments over a week.
Yeah, and that's pretty much our go-to strategy every time we launch a fan account. Is about 100 comments. Now, it's not always that successful, but I think it's because we were dealing with an artist that already had an active community. Sure. If they don't have an active community, what I'll do is I'll engage with similar fan accounts. For example, if I've got a country artist that is very country, my truck, my beer, that kind of shit, I have a series of fan accounts that are that, and I'll just engage with them, and then I will start posting content, and it'll generally do pretty well.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we should say in this segment is that you got to give the algorithm some clue of what the fuck to do with you when you're starting out. And a lot of people are below the 1,000 followers, and you got to do something. And some of this is that work of finding your community, finding the other small artists like you, going in, being present, commenting, trying to make content that gives you some sort of clue of where to go, even if Mosseri is right that, let's say Instagram fully is blind to who you comment on, at least you are getting those neighboring effects of some people are going to see your content and go, and at least that's something to do when you're at zero and in an algorithmic jail.
Overall, though, a lot of people obsess over hacks like this. I think we'd all agree that nothing beats the actual content itself being something people want to watch. You could skip all of this commenting and whatever thing entirely and just post content and grow. This is not a prerequisite or requirement to have your band do good on social media.
So
Right.
I'm going to disagree with you there. And I'm not saying it's a requirement to comment, but here's the thing. Here's what's really happening whenever you post on social media is that the algorithm is trying to search for people that like it. And usually that's about 300 to 1,000 people before it either finds the audience and continues or finds the wrong audience and calls it quits. So the reality is Andrew's right, but it will take you more content because you need more times at bat. So the better you can inform the algorithm, the quicker and less content it takes in order to find that audience immediately. So you're right, Andrew, in that like good content will eventually find an audience. But I think the other problem there is that it's not about good content. It's about targeted content. It's about having hooks and content that hook the right audience, because that's truly what your targeting is. And so if you think about it in that context, okay, content needs to hook, target, right? Well, your comments also need to target. Everything needs to target, because the better the targeting across the board, the more accurate the reach on those first 300 views.
Well, yeah, like you don't have to do any of this stuff. You can just make content and it will grow, assuming the content's good. But there are things you can do to accelerate, your traction, right? And so like, especially on TikTok, this is a thing that you're not the only person I know that's talked about like pre-seasoning their TikTok accounts. I think I know like 6 or 7 people that talk about doing this every time they open up a new account or whatever. But it's usually like
pre-seasoning. I like that.
when you warm it up or whatever, right?
I like just seasoning your TikTok account. I like that.
But it's also,
but you don't have to do it. It's just on TikTok specifically, it can help. And on Instagram, there's different things you can do. But like most other platforms, it's really just about posting stuff. Like no matter what you do in terms of pre-seasoning, if the content sucks, none of that's going to matter whatsoever.
Yeah.
I do think, though, that there's a thing to be said here that's a bit of a qualification, which is that since most artists at best are making a 7 of 10, the problem is if they have no idea who to try you on, it's very unlikely a 7 out of 10 goes. Now, when we say that the thing TikTok changed about social media is that it made it so somebody with 0 followers could get millions of views, and that was what they brought to the thing. It is just far less likely if you haven't given it hints about where to take you, because it's going to test on people who are unlikely to like what you do.
Well, it's this interesting thing where it's like, if your music is truly that good, like truly 99 out of 100, the amount of marketing you need to do is relatively low because you have a top 1 percentile song. The amount of other stuff you need to do is relatively low because you like genuinely have like one of the best songs to come out ever. It's the same with the content. Like, yeah, like if you're dropping like top 1 percentile content, then like, yeah, you don't need to do like comment shit or whatever.
So just make the best content available, period.
Yeah, but if you're making 86 out of 100 content, which is very good, to be clear, you need to be doing a lot of other stuff to help amplify that 86 out of 100 content. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot, it might be wrong about this, but like if you have an account that you've just been using for a while, like some of these tactics probably are less impactful than if you're making a brand new account. So all these platforms, if you make a brand new account and just start posting, they kind of just treat you like you're a spam bot. because you just opened up a new account, you just started posting day one, which is weird. It's not like a normal behavior. If you have like a platform that you've been using to consume, and chances are the music you make lines up with the things you consume, for a lot of artists that don't like purposefully go through all these tactics, are they just kind of accidentally kind of get their account primed in the process by just being normal humans who use social media?
Well, and I see that work. I see it to where an artist is either using TikTok as their main social media platform or Instagram, right? Let's say they're a TikTok user, but they also post to Instagram. They'll say to me, "Oh, well, my TikTok's doing great, but my Instagram kind of sucks." Well, and it's because of what you just said, Andrew, right? They're using it normally, and they're probably engaging with a community that would also like their content. I mean, look, I have artists who we don't do this, but outright hire engagement people that they'll just sit there and comment on a bunch of stuff, and it does really work well. It's a
But
good investment.
but isn't it also just a thing of like, if I'm an artist whose main social media time is spent on Instagram, I'm inherently more comfortable with sort of the language of Instagram. If I'm an artist who spends most of my social media time on TikTok, I'm going to be inherently more comfortable with the language of TikTok.
I think so.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
No,
That's true
like
too.
I see it all the time. Do you disagree, Jesse?
It's a different vibe on all these platforms. Like if you go to Facebook Reels, you're gonna get different vibe than if you're on Instagram.
Yeah, and I just feel like you get the vibe. You will reflect the vibe of what you are consuming. That's just how it works.
I, I, this is where I have like, I don't agree with the larger sentiment, but I do think in general, what works on one platform of making stuff in 2026, I've been finding this to be more real and true, is making something that takes people to a different world than when they've been just doing this and they've been seeing the same thing of somebody in their bedroom doing some bullshit. And when you take them someplace where they go, "Oh, wow," that is a lot more likely to work. And that is platform agnostic, and that it works on all three of the
Yeah,
short form
that's true.
platforms. So like my thing is when we're thinking like about these semantic things of the differences between the three platforms, I do sometimes think we're thinking a little too small.
Yeah. That's what Jesse recommended Filter World to me, and I just started it.
Oh,
And
great book.
yeah, and it basically is about that. Essentially, it's like,
Mhm.
look, what the algorithm likes on each of these platforms is different, but ultimately, if you appeal to what humans like, you can kind of transcend that, and you can just live outside of what these platforms. And what's interesting to me is that some of the stuff that we're always trying kind of gets us into trouble with artists, because we'll do, like, let's say a horizontal video, right? We'll have the black bars and we'll try something new. And while in hyperpop, that's a thing that's happening everywhere, in country, it's not. So our teams will say to us, "Why are you doing this? Like, this is not," like, they look at us like we're idiots. "Aren't you social people? This is supposed to be vertical content." And we're like, "You don't understand. We're trying to appeal to humans. We're not trying to appeal to the algorithm," because that is truly how you set things apart. Same thing with music. When and I'll talk about Zach Top a million times, when his manager was making everybody in town listen to him, it was like, "Check out this artist," and everybody was like, "Hey, that's not what's he's really traditional 90s country." That's not what's happening in country right now. Yeah, but because he played by his own rules and he appealed to humans and not what was trending in the genre, he was able to break out in a way you can't otherwise. Now everybody's trying to follow him and they can't do the same thing. Same thing goes for these platforms.
Let's
So
thank God that there's not a drinking game attached to saying Zach Top, or else Matt would be in a lot of trouble right now.
Jesse, I
We'll talk about Zach Top a lot.
schedule.
overall, I like agree that great content's great content, right? It doesn't matter where it gets posted. However,
Yeah.
like, it's still not going to be uniform, like no matter what. And that's because there is a different culture on all these platforms, right? I looked up Musformation on Facebook, and there is a Facebook page for Musformation, which you don't even have a profile picture.
You want to know when it was made? 2009.
Jesus. But
That's
you have videos posting every day in this because you have cross posting set up from
Mhm.
Instagram, and there's practically no views in these videos because
Did you want to ask me the last time I signed into Facebook?
well, right.
Yeah.
Like the point is, it's the same content, and we know it's good content and it does good on other platforms. And
Well,
Facebook,
no,
it doesn't do anything. And honestly, like I've seen the same thing. I have cross posting on my Facebook, and but I know other musicians, they have cross posting on Instagram and Facebook, and some people who just naturally do way better on Facebook than Instagram consistently, not because like they've designed their content to be better for Facebook, just because the culture of their music and the vibe the people they attract resonates better with the people who frequent Facebook Reels, which is a very specific type of person, right?
but you know what I could also tell you is that when you've done 5 posts in 10 years on a platform that are just auto posting, you're never going to do well on Facebook.
Yeah. I mean, all your stuff is auto posted. So that then I would imagine they might weight that differently.
Yeah.
And you don't even
And also all the followers are from 20 years ago. 2016.
Semi-related.
all 12 of them.
Yeah. I don't even think that the funny thing is that's probably not even the main page.
Maybe you made a new one.
Semi-related. One of my hobbies is looking up very hot artists on Facebook, like very hot new artists on Facebook, and seeing how many Facebook likes they have, because it's always like, this is the biggest band in America right now. They have under 10,000 Facebook followers.
Yeah.
It just makes me laugh every time. That's all.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. We're trying to get it to go as far as it possibly can. So if you could, please share with a musician friend.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on all your favorite podcast apps. If you're on YouTube, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our episode every Tuesday. If you can rate us on Apple and Spotify, it helps us tremendously. So make sure to tune in next week.